What's going on, guys? I'm Cliff Jantz, and I'm here to answer the question, is it any good? With this video, we're going to talk about Quentin Tarantino's ninth movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It takes place in 1969, obviously in Hollywood, if you didn't guess that from the title. When this movie was first announced, it was said that it was based on the Charlie Manson murders of Sharon Tate. That's a very secondary plot to the overall story of this movie. Charlie Manson's in it for maybe 5 minutes, if even that long. It does have one scene where you go to his compound where his followers are living. Sharon Tate, who's played really well by Margaret Robbie, she just doesn't have a lot to do in this movie. Her main purpose is the fact that she's the next door neighbor of one of the main characters of this movie, and that's Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays Rick Dalton, who is a washed up movie star who's trying to stay relevant towards the end of his career. He's being cast as a lot of guest starring villains on a lot of TV shows, which I guess is a sign that your career's coming to an end. It also focuses on Brad Pitt, who plays Cliff Booth, who is Rick Dalton's stuntman, driver, and maintenance guy, and more importantly, friend, because they've been together a long time, so they develop a friendship over the years. This movie focuses heavily on their relationship, which I enjoyed. There's a lot of scenes where it's just them together. This movie is not very story driven. It's more character driven. There's not a linear story. It has a beginning, it has an end, but it's more just scenes and dialogue, which I enjoyed. It's Quentin Tarantino dialogue. But this movie had a lot of good. I'm going to go over some of the stuff I really enjoyed about this movie. There's a few mixed things that I don't like, that aren't bad. Some people aren't going to like it, but they're just kind of mixed for me. But first, we'll get into the good. Start off there. Start off positive. The good. This movie makes you feel like you're in 1969 Hollywood, whether it be the set pieces, the dialogue, the cars that they're driving. There's several scenes that take place in cars as they're driving around Hollywood. And then the stuff that's playing on the radio. The soundtrack to this movie is phenomenal. It does a good job of taking you back to that time. And each song that's playing with each scene makes that scene that much better. He did a good job picking out what song needs to be playing at which time. This movie is actually very funny. I found myself laughing out loud several times throughout this movie. Generally his movies have scenes like that, but this one seemed to have more. I think it's one of his funnier movies. And that's because of the way it's written and because of the performances, which I actually thought was the best part of this movie. I thought Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio had great chemistry together. I don't know if they've ever acted together in a movie. I don't think they have. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. I think Brad Pitt is the coolest character in this movie. And a little side note, he needs to start aging because it's really not fair for any other man alive right now. But that being said, I think he was the coolest part. I think Leonardo DiCaprio, though, gave the best performance. He had several scenes in this movie that he knocked it out of the park. I don't want to go into detail or spoil because there are a couple scenes that him alone actually caused me to laugh several times throughout the movie. But I'll be very shocked if he doesn't win an Oscar for this. But, that's pretty much the good. It's just like a standard. The dialogue in this movie, everything's good. The first act, there's a little bit more good, apparently. The first act in this movie is very well done. It does a good job of setting up these characters, letting you know where they've been, where they are, how they got to this point in their relationships. The third act, it delivers very well. This movie is kind of a slow burn, but then gives us this very great climax. But the mix and the bad for me is the second act of the movie. It slows down a good bit. There are several scenes that once you get to the end of the movie, you're like, did that scene really need to be in there? Especially with a movie that's this long. There's a couple scenes that are like, okay, that didn't need to be in there. One in particular that they kind of keep going back to is, and it's in the preview, so I'm not spoiling anything, but it's Sharon Tate watching a movie of herself that really had nothing to do with anything. It doesn't establish anything about this character really. it was just kind of pointless. But as a whole, I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's a little bit slower than some of his other movies, so I don't think if you're not into that, you're not going to enjoy this movie. But it's as a Quentin Tarantino movie, it is very well done. I think if you like his movies, you'll like this movie. I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10. Let me know what you guys thought about in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm Cliff Jantz. Is it any good? Thank you.